Are you hiring? Do you know where to post your job to find the best candidates? With ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to 100-plus job sites with just one click. Then their powerful technology efficiently matches the right people to your job better than anyone else. That's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you, it finds them. In fact, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within 1 day. No juggling emails or calling to your office. Simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, my listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/M&M. That's ZipRecruiter.com/M&M. One more time, to try it for free, go to ZipRecruiter.com/M&M.
It's time for some straight talk. Some people are big-time data users, some not so much. Well, Straight Talk Wireless has unlimited plans of all sizes, like the newest, with the first 2 gigs of data at high speed, then 2G for just $35 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data, all on America's largest and most dependable networks. Big or small, everyone saves with Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts, only at Walmart.
A month equals 30 days. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
What do you say, Michael?
Shut up.
Tim Kurkjian, do you reckon that is the legendary Gene Wilder from Young Frankenstein?
Take a give, right. Yeah.
Good. Set a give.
Right.
Attaboy. How are you, Timmy?
I'm good.
What a day, right? I mean, that was a crazy day yesterday.
Right. I do this all the time, but I sat down and watched baseball from 1 o'clock yesterday until almost 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was fabulous stuff. That Astros-Red Sox game was tremendous. The Nationals-Cubs game was tremendous, and the late game was pretty darn good too. So if you love baseball, you loved yesterday, and so classic of postseason baseball that managers from Joe Madden all the way to A.J. Hinch are getting roasted about the moves they made only because this is October baseball.
So what are the 1 or 2 biggest things that caught your eye in those 4 games?
Well, the Astros offense is ridiculously good, and they found a way to score 5 runs yesterday and win that series. But I was really struck that Chris Sale and Justin Verlander were pitching in the game in relief at the same time. That essentially has never happened. We've never had a postseason game, where the opposing pitchers came in relief. They had a 250 strikeout season on their resume, and they were both brought in to pitch in relief in the same game on opposing teams. And we understood with Sale, their team was behind in the game and behind in the series. But in the Astros case, they were ahead in the game and ahead in the series, and they still went and got Justin Verlander, which speaks again to what it's like in October, where you can't afford to lose a game, and you say, we're not going to a Game 5 here. We're going to try to win this now.
A.J. Hinch will join us actually later this morning, the manager of the Astros, and we'll talk with him about that decision. So the Astros, though, they get their win, and what you're right, was a wild game yesterday, and they move on. The Astros hit .418 and slugged .891 against Red Sox starting pitching in that series. So that's clearly been if you want to just step back and say, big picture, the headline through this first round of the postseason, which has a minimum of 2 and maybe 3 games remaining, has been the performance or lack thereof of starting pitching basically everywhere you look.
Right. It's been an amazing postseason because the starting pitching has been so bad for the most part. And then you look at what the Cubs have done to the Nationals lineup, which is a great lineup, by the way, but not lately. Cubs starting pitching has been sensational so far, and that was the weaker point of the team coming in. The starting pitching wasn't nearly as good as it was this time last year, and yet so far, starting with Hendricks and then Lester and then Quintana, starting pitching has been great for the Cubs.
All right, so let me just ask, because we're on that, I'm sorry, but we were talking about it earlier. You were in the room, so you may have heard it. There's an 80% chance of rain today in Chicago. If they should get rained out, if they don't get rained out, then this is irrelevant. But if they should get rained out today, would you expect the Nationals to come back with Strasburg tomorrow?
Well, I certainly would. He had an 0.86 ERA the second half of the season. He was brilliant in game one of this series. And when he's right, nobody can hit him. I told you guys, I had lunch once with Mike Schmidt and John Kruk. Like, who doesn't belong at that table? And Mike Schmidt looks at me in the middle of lunch and goes, by the way, how does anyone ever get a hit off of Steven Strasburg? That's Mike Schmidt talking. That's how good his stuff was 2 years ago, and it's better now. He's a better pitcher now. So, but the Nationals aren't one to move him around. They've always been so cautious with him. Tanner Roark is a very good pitcher, but Strasburg on short rest has to pitch game 4 if indeed it gets to that point.
So with Washington, and I know the Cubs are the defending World Series champs, but is this, if Washington loses this series, is this another unrealized potential for a team that so much more was expected of?
Yeah, they have the best regular season record the last 6 years, and if they don't get out of the first round, they will not have won a first-round series. A playoff series, it's unbelievable, and you guys have seen the numbers. You talked about it. They're hitting 121 as a team, and yesterday was a great win for the Cubs, but it was an even worse loss for the Nationals, given the way that played out. And 7 of their last 8 postseason losses have been by 1 run, and that's pretty hard to take. And they seem to have done it in different ways, and yesterday was a little bit different than some other losses.
Mike and Mike, Timmy Kurkjian's in our studio here for just a few minutes. We were talking about the Yankees and Joe Giardi and the emotional roller coaster that has been this series for him, and particularly in the wake of Friday night. And Buster, you may have heard, Buster was on with us yesterday and said that his expectation is that Giardi will not be back next season as manager of the Yankees, and that it may be Joe's decision regardless of what the Yankees want. If they should win this series, if they should win tomorrow, which they certainly have a chance to do, would that change your perspective? Again, I don't know if you share Buster's belief, so I guess I would ask you a two-part question. Do you agree that you think that Giardi will be out next year? And if they win this series and go forward, would that change your perspective?
Well, note my hesitancy here. I don't think he's coming back next year, but I'm not certain. And if they win the series, and they could even win the next round, conceivably, I think that would change a whole lot of things. Joe Girardi's not a good manager. He's a great manager. And that team rebuilt while he was the manager, and he helped keep them in contention all this time. He's done an amazing job the last several years, but Terry Francona left the Red Sox in part. Well, he got fired essentially, but he kind of knew I had run my course here, and that could be the case with Joe Girardi, but I think they want him back. I think he should be back. I'm just not sure he's going to be back given the current situation.
Well, they also didn't offer him a deal. I mean,
exactly.
So
he has to look around. But trust me, if he's not back, let's say they were to fire him, which I don't think is going to happen, he would get another job in about 5 minutes.
Well, people will immediately look at Derek Jeter running the Marlins, which we understand that Girardi managed there once before, but this is an entirely different era. And he played with with Jeter and managed Jeter. Would that be the first place you'd look?
That would be a possibility, but I just don't see it as simple as we're going to let Don Mattingly go. See you later.
Right.
So my
people
guess,
want Mattingly to go manage the Yankees.
Right,
And
I just don't think it's that simple that Mattingly and Girardi switch places. But there are other jobs out there. Again, I understand what Buster's saying, and I tend to agree with him on this, but I still think there's some drama to come here.
Oh. Yeah, it's going to get pretty wild. I got to go back to my Indians just because. Corey Kluber going to start, didn't do well. Do we see a switch? The Sabathia pitched well, Kluber didn't. I'm hoping for the switch. What the expectation, if you're an Indian fan, you didn't want it to go this far, but Game 5, you got your Cy Young guy on the mound, so all is good?
All is good.
I'm hoping?
Full rest for Corey Kluber. He has been the best pitcher in baseball since June the 1st. But that start in Game 2 was confusing.
Yeah.
He basically gave up as many runs in that start as he'd given up in the last 7 starts combined. And no one's quite sure what happened to Corey Kluber other than what we've talked about on this show. Doesn't matter how good your stuff is. If you miss location with today's hitters, they are going to pound you. They're not going to give up a line drive to left field. They're going to hit it 20 rows up, and that's what happened to Kluber, among other things. I fully expect him to be great. I fully expect him to win, but this is baseball, boys. Anything could happen.
Yeah, and Sabathia on the other side. That's really interesting, not only because of his history in Cleveland, but because of the great career that he's had. And you want to talk about a chance for one last huge moment, which it wouldn't be the last one if they win this game. But what a spot for Sabathia to find himself in.
He's been a better pitcher this year than people realize. He pitched very well in Game 2 of this series, and they probably went and got him a little too early. Part of the reason people were yelling at Joe Giardi, but he's not going to be spooked by an elimination game on the road pitched against Corey Kluber. He'll keep them in that game.
So the Indians with the top record in the American League, Dodgers in the National League, there were more than a few that thought the Diamondbacks would take out the Dodgers in this. Have the Dodgers righted the ship enough in your mind going forward?
Yeah, and I thought they had before the postseason started, and now it's fairly obvious that they have. And, they lost 16 out of 17, which is just impossible for a team that's 55 games over 500 for that to happen. It's never happened, basically, in baseball history, but they look awfully good now, and their starting pitching has been great. And even though you look at their lineup certain days and you wonder, how do they score runs? With this lineup, they always seem to score enough runs, and with their rotation and that guy they have coming in the ninth inning, they're a really good team. I thought they were the best team in the National League going into the playoffs, and then they just wiped out the Diamondbacks.
But, of course, their biggest star is Clayton Kershaw, and we are a well-documented history of struggles in the postseason. So I'll phrase the question this way. Do they need him to be great to get to the World Series?
Yes, and they need him to be great to win the World Series also. And he hasn't been great in the postseason. We know all about this. And his last start, he became the first pitcher ever to win a postseason game, giving up 4 homers. Again, proving my point again. Even when Kershaw misses location, they hit a home run off of him. That's how it works. But, yes, I think he'll be great, and I think the rest he got and their ability to let him wait until his back and everything was completely healthy puts him in a position to be terrific the rest of the way, and I think he will be.
He is Timmy Kurkjian coming off what was a crazy day in all-around baseball. And, again, we have one game on the schedule today. ESPN Radio has every pitch of it covered for you. That's at Wrigley Field, Nationals and Cubs Game 4. Weather permitting. Yeah. We'll see what happens with that. And then, of course, Yankees-Indians are scheduled for tomorrow night because the Yankees...
I'm going to break your finger.
I do it just to make him mad. All right, Timmy has to run over and do Sports Center or we're going to get yelled at.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Timmy.
Tim. We appreciate you doing this.
Frau Bueller.
Frau Blucher. Well done. That's Tim Kurkjian with us here. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. You can test drive Snapshot even if you have insurance with another company. See how much you can save before you switch. If you were to name movies, and again, I really don't know how well something like Young Frankenstein holds up. But if you were to name movies from previous generations that you have an emotional attachment to, not that it's the funniest movie ever made, but that you just have a love for.
Animal House?
Anyone? Yeah, but I mean, my point is Young Frankenstein goes on that list.
Oh,
I wonder if, because it is a spoof, as opposed to, pardon me, other movies that are comedies that are singular, that sort of stand on their own of an era. This is a spoof of Frankenstein movies, obviously. Yeah. So that still remains to at least some degree relevant.
Right.
I wonder how that holds up. I wonder for people who aren't old enough to remember it fondly, how Young Frankenstein holds up.
I'd have to sit my kids, again, they're 28, 27, 22. Sit them down and
do you think they've seen it? Has Mikey Golick Jr. seen Young Frankenstein?
I don't think.
Has anyone in this room seen Young Frankenstein? I'm looking around. No.
Nobody.
We got one hand raised over here.
There. Okay.
That's really a shame.
Yeah.
That is a tragic set of circumstances, to say the very least. Yeah. Do yourself a favor. Watch that movie. It's awfully good. All right. In the meantime, we will fill in the blank. Fill in the blank with Mike and Mike is brought to you by Mahindra Tractors and Utility Vehicles. Mahindra USA, the world's #1 selling tractor. All around the world of sports, we shall go. Filling in the blank. Number 1. The most significant injury in the NFL this past weekend was blank.
Well, I would say it's a combination of J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless. I mean, we can talk about Odell Beckham Jr., but that team wasn't doing anything this year. So you want to talk from an individual side, okay, I get what you're saying because he's going for his money. J.J. Watt already has his money. But you look at the Houston Texans and that division, Tennessee without Mariota, I had picked them to win the division, but they look shaky. Jacksonville is hot and cold. The Colts aren't going anywhere this year, so it is right there for Houston. Deshaun Watson is playing pretty well. They have a number of good weapons on the offensive side of the ball, especially getting Fuller back. He scored a ton of touchdowns, and Hopkins, I mean, it's been fantastic. You just lost in Merciless and Watt from 2012 to this year. They have 109 sacks between them. There's no duo in the game that has more than that as teammates. So that, without question to me, is I don't just say J.J. Watt. I say Whitney Merciless as well for what he brings to that team. That was devastating for that team and what they're trying to accomplish.
I understand your point. I'm still going to go Odell, and I'll tell you why. Because every now and again there is a paradigm shift in sports. And we'll play you coming up in this hour. Adam Schefter, Max Kellerman, and others who have suggested that Odell, in the precarious financial situation in which he was, shouldn't have been on the field. Now, whether you agree with that or you disagree with that, notwithstanding, and I know you're going to disagree with it. Yes. I get that. As a former player, I expected you to. But I do wonder if he really is, if this is the kind of thing from which he does not recover fully, or let's put it this way, if he doesn't get his money, if the Giants don't give him the money that he otherwise would have gotten, I wonder if this will be the beginning of a bit of a shift of guys genuinely in that kind of situation, Aaron Donald and others, genuinely not going on the field until they get their money. It could happen. I understand that it never does. And one of the reasons it never does is because the way the contracts are structured is so overwhelmingly skewed to the benefit of the owners that it's almost impossible for a guy to hold out for his money. Almost impossible. Yeah. But when you see something like that happen, it makes you wonder. I wonder if it'll be the beginning of a new era in football.
I don't think it will because I think he'll still get his money.
I hope so. Look, I don't know Odell Beckham from anything, but I really hope he does. Kimberly Jones tweeted at 6:49 a.m., so less than a half hour ago, I'm told Odell Beckham Jr. had surgery on his fractured ankle last night at the hospital for special surgery. Healing and recovery begins. So the surgery, according to Kim Jones, has been done. Next, fill in the blank. Big Ben will play blank more seasons after this one in the NFL.
Yeah, it was interesting. After the game, the 5 interceptions, his quote was, maybe I don't have it anymore. I would say, I would ask how many more years are on his contract, of what he's making. So he's 2017, 2018, 2019, right? So his cap
base
hit.
salary is $12 million each of the next 2 years. He's got bonuses that extrapolate out over the course of that. So he's getting over $20 million each of the next 2 years.
Each of the next 2 years, and then he has the option, potential out, at least to the end of the contract. You're making $18 to $20 million a year, he's going to play. That's my thought.
How much money has he already made? I'm guessing the number is well over $100 million.
He's made a good amount. I'll say 2 more years.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is his last year, and I'll tell you why. Again, I don't know Roethlisberger well either, but he doesn't look like a person who's having fun. Like, when you watch this, he does not look like he's enjoying himself. He's made $170 million. He's 30, what is he, 36-ish, 37 years old.
Remember, you're losing half that to taxes.
He's going to have to somehow squeak by on the $85 million he's managed to pocket after taxes. Even I could divide that by 2. Like, at some point, when you get to that level financially, I think you're playing because you love it. Like Peyton Manning wanted to keep playing. Tom Brady wants to keep playing. Tom Brady has all the money in the world, and his wife has more.
You're right about Ben. It doesn't
look like he's having fun to me.
Does not look enjoyable.
I would not be at all surprised if he plays 0 more years. There's 2 mentalities. There's the guys who are going to play until they just can't, and you were one of them. And I think because of that, and I don't mean this to insult you, I mean it in some way to compliment you, you can't fathom the other mentality.
No.
Like, you can't fathom any other mentality other than, man, I'm going to play until no one will give me a helmet anymore. I think there is another mentality.
Oh, I think there absolutely is. I completely agree.
He looks to me like he may be approaching that.
Tough to deny that.
From afar, that's my impression. All right, next. Joel Embiid getting a max extension from the 76ers is blank.
Awesome, man. I love when guys get paid. I mean, all these people that get on the basketball for guys that you never heard of making $10, $12 million a year. I love it. I love when a sport is that flush where owners are making money, teams are making money, players are making, though you did hear that a number of teams in the NBA actually lost money this year.
Yep.
But, I don't think anybody's crying a river for the NBA. They're doing just fine. And players are making money. And they have the money to spend, and they're spending it. And this guy, I know you're betting on the come here, even after 3 years and only 31 games. If this guy is right, he is a stud to watch.
I think he may be the most freakishly talented of all the young bigs, including Karl Anthony Towns.
Somebody said the Greek Freak.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe him.
Yeah.
So Embiid or the Greek Freak?
What's the Greek Freak, 6'11"?
The Greek Freak is a different player, though. I mean, they don't do the same thing.
I agree with that, but from a size, if they're both the same
fair
size,
enough. Fair enough.
Freak is a freak.
I'm comparing Embiid more to guys like Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Davis and people like that. But But, of course, it's risky. I mean, I'm going to use the word risky or optimistic, because history tells us that guys who get hurt to the extent that he's been getting hurt, they don't have careers like that. See Sam Bowie, see Bill Walton, see all these guys whose careers were significantly impacted by injury. Next, fill in the blank. Of the 3 0-5 teams, the Niners, Browns, and Giants, the one that will finish with the fewest wins is blank.
I think it's going to be Cleveland. I just think, Sean Kaiser got pulled. Hogan went in.
They're saying Hogan's going to start this week.
Going to start, so is
It'll be their 29th starting quarterback.
Yeah. So either they want Kaiser to just take a breath, or if Hogan's doing well, they'll just keep sitting him. But I just think all around, from offensive weapons and defense, the way they're all playing, that I know that they're playing tough. It's just like the 49ers. So I like the way the 49ers defense plays. They don't have a ton of weapons on offense. But I'll unfortunately say the Cleveland Browns.
Me too. Next, the second best team in the NFL is blank. And I assume by that we're giving Kansas City number 1, and they deserve it, being 5-0, and Alex Smith has been great, etc. So, Mike, who is the second best team in the NFL?
The FPI has Kansas City 1, New England 2, 3 Green Bay, 4 Seattle, 5 Atlanta. Kick rocks all of you there. The second best team is the Philadelphia Eagles.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
I think the Eagles deserve to be in that discussion. They do. And I think they're the one that have the biggest arrow pointing in the positive direction, because there's every reason to think they should continue to get better. I mean, Wentz, we live in an era now where these guys, we think, oh, well, he's in his second year. He should be a superstar.
Right.
No. He should continue getting better for like the next 3 years. And he should be taking huge steps forward almost on a monthly basis. I agree with you. I think the Eagles deserve to at least be in the discussion.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you, whether you're at home, your business, or online. We help keep you safe with security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
All right, I got an answer from Hembo on the Hall of Fame class question. And every time we mention this, we get a lot of tweets from people saying, Greeny, how can you say Eli Manning is a future Hall of Famer? I will merely say this. No quarterback as accomplished as he is not in the Hall of Fame. None. There's only one quarterback with 2 Super Bowls that didn't make the Hall of Fame, and that's Jim Plunkett.
Joe Namath in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
Well,
Joe Namath.
I could have lived without that.
Well, I'm sorry, but
you know that he's my favorite player that ever lived.
I know he is. I understand.
You know he is the king of cool.
And I'm not ripping the fact that he's in the Hall of Fame. But
he
I'm
won
saying
the most significant game maybe in football
if he's
history.
in the Hall of Fame, you can't tell me that Eli isn't going to be.
He
in the Hall
authored
of
the
Fame.
greatest upset of all time.
Okay, and I love the fur jacket.
Phil Simms is not in the Hall of Fame. That's the one people will point to.
Right.
Sometimes I believe that Eli is going to get in. I think Phillip Rivers is the questionable one because he has played great and he's put up huge numbers, but he's never won anything.
No rings, right.
But I've heard a lot of people say they believe he'll make it. Either way, we asked the question, how many times have there been 3 quarterbacks in the same class to get into the Hall of Fame? And the answer is once.
Right.
John Elway, Dan Marino, Jim Kelly from 83. The only other classes that have multiple quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame, you got to go a ways back. 1957, Len Dawson and Sonny Jurgensen.
Someone did tweet in there were 3 there, including Paul Hornung. Paul Hornung was a halfback.
Did he play any quarterback? I mean, he may have played a little bit of quarterback. Certainly, Paul Hornung was a running back.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if he may have played some quarterback or not. Not to my knowledge. Anyway, Len Dawson, Sonny Jurgensen in 57, George Blanda and Norm Van Brocklin in 49. Now, Blanda had an incredibly long career, primarily as a kicker.
Right.
He was a quarterback and continued to play some quarterback in Oakland late in his career, but was primarily a kicker much of his career, but whatever. And then 1944, Otto Graham from Northwestern and Bob Waterfield were those. So those would be the only classes ever. So you got to go back, besides the Elway Marino Kelly class.
Got to go back
you have to go back before the common draft to a time where there were multiple quarterbacks drafted. So I believe they'll get 2 for sure. I agree with that. Personally, I think Roethlisberger and Eli are locks.
I think they're both in, yes. I think Rivers could be the question mark.
Okay, so there's just wanted to clear that up. Now, let's get to the other piece of this. Really interesting stuff. 2 different people here at ESPN, Adam Schefter and Max Kellerman, who are well-known and well-respected voices at the network, were both yesterday talking about the same thing, and that is Odell Beckham being on the field on Sunday with everything that he has to lose, which is a complicated issue, no question about it, and one that hasn't really come up much in pro football because of the mentality of pro football. It starts to come up in college football every once in a while. It came up in a big way with Jadeveon Clowney and others in college football. Anyway, let me just play it for you. Here's a little bit of Shefty yesterday from NFL Live.
For somebody like Odell Beckham Jr., to steal your phrase, that's a transcendent talent, to step on a football field when you're scheduled to make $1.8 million, when you're going to be paid $60, $65, $70 million in guaranteed money, that's a mistake. You don't step foot on that football field.
So that is an opinion that I knew when I saw Shefty say that. My inclination was to go, I knew your inclination was going to be to go, stop it.
Oh, yeah.
I knew that. Let's play Ryan Clark, who was with him at the time. So, again, a former player, was on the set, and he had these thoughts.
Yeah, we could say he could have sat out, and maybe he sits out the whole season. And maybe after sitting out the whole season and not getting hurt, we figure out the penalties, we figure out the fines, and he gets his money. I get that. But when you're built the way we're built, when you think the way people think that play this game, it doesn't make sense in black and white. There's all kind of shades of gray.
You have to remember.
So there's RC taking, and again, this is not meant critically, but the mentality of the player, sometimes I believe, and I've said this of you many times, you know this, with what happened to you in college, winds up working to your detriment. So with those as the backdrop, Mike, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I completely agree with Ryan Clark. I mean, and you're right. You're just built that way where you're going to play. I mean, the last players that held out an entire season for a contract, Al Harris and Todd Bell.
Has no one else done it since?
I don't think so.
That was the 85 Bears.
An entire season. They sat out the 85 Bears. They ended up being my teammates in Philadelphia for a short time, but they sat out that season. We've had other players that would sit out up to the point where your season would count. 8-week, 10-week, whatever. Well, I think it's by the eighth game now, to where
you have to be on the roster for 8 weeks.
Yeah, it used to be 10. Used to be you could go in by the 10th week and the season would count. Now it's by the 8th week that you have to go in for your season to count. Players just don't do that. I mean, there are two other. You have. I tell you another thing we're talking about that's odd is this year with that 5th-year option, you have 3 guys who are arguably the best at their position, looking to be the highest paid at their position. Now, Odell Beckham Jr. is not going to be the highest paid player in the NFL, but he's going to be the highest paid receiver. Aaron Donald will be and this year Odell's making 1.8. Aaron Donald's making 1.8. He's going to be the highest paid interior lineman when he gets paid. And Zach Martin's making 1.6 this year. He's going to be the highest paid guard when he plays. Now, Zach Martin never sat out at all. They were negotiating a new deal, and they didn't get where they wanted to go, so they just stopped negotiating. He was at camp, everything, practice, the whole deal. Aaron Donald, we know, sat out camp and then came back before the season even started, too close to the first game to play in it. And Odell didn't hold out either, and we know he sprained his ankle in the preseason. Players just don't do it. Now, if you want to say there should be a shift in the mentality, you can say that all you want. But to me, it's just very difficult for a player to do that, to just sit and wait and wait and wait and wait. Plus, you sit the whole season. The year doesn't count for you for whatever that means, if you sit the entire season. But the whole idea is to get your $50 million guaranteed as opposed to the $1.8 million you're supposed to make this year. So I mean, I know Odell missed a few of the voluntary workouts. Once it got to camp, when the pads went on and you started playing football, he was there, Zach was there, Aaron Donald waited until the beginning of the first game. I just can't change that mentality, and I don't think football players, while there is a shift in some mentality, I do understand that. I don't know if it's going to go that far where you're going to get somebody that is going to sit. I could maybe see someone sit half a year that thought that maybe Aaron Donald was going to do that. And then you only have to worry about a half a year to not get hurt.
Yeah, players have done that.
Before you get paid. Players have absolutely done that.
And a lot of players have held out and for lack of a better word, won.
Yes.
The players have held out with current contracts. They're not guys in this situation.
Right. These guys, remember, are 2 years before, their deal up, right?
Yeah. Now, players with multiple years left on their contracts have sat. What I mean is guys this young who've been in the league this short a time haven't gotten to their second contract.
On their first contract.
We haven't seen those guys doing this. But I mean, Darrelle Revis made a habit of this with the Jets, and he won many times. They gave him the money.
He played the system well, and what's different here is what I just said. These guys in their fourth year, this is their fourth year, are the best at their position.
Right.
They are the best. Odell, again, I think Odell's the one you may argue may not be with Julio Jones and Antonio Brown. I mean, he's right there, though. I think Zach is the best guard, and I think Aaron Donald's the best interior lineman, again, right there.
But he's a ridiculously significant player for a variety of reasons.
They're all three going to be the highest paid of their position.
Probably. I mean, I'd say probably because let's see what happens with Odell now, and that's the point here. And that is that sometimes the mentality of the football player, look, I mean, there are a variety of reasons why the football player has it the worst of any of the athletes in the major sports from a financial standpoint. Any number of reasons. Their contract situation is by far the worst. Their CBA is by far the worst. Their circumstances are by far the worst. They have the least power for any number of reasons.
Injury can destroy you in all
many of which are beyond your control.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say you because in this case I'm making you a player again. Mm-hmm. Many of the circumstances for that are beyond your control, but some of them are not. And so let me take a short break here. When we come back, let's tell everybody a story. Because, we have new people that come to us all the time. Many people don't know the story of Golick's last year of college.
No.
And
last
something
year
that
for the NFL.
No, I'm going to talk about the last year of college.
Yeah, you're right.
Your last year of college, in which the football player's mentality, for which I give you credit and I totally understand, wound up biting you in the tuchus in a way that in some ways affected your entire career.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Great Twitter stuff today. All the hashtag Too Far Tuesdays. Lots of fun, and we'll give away bobbleheads as the morning continues. And very quickly, Gale Sayers and Terrell Davis each played seven seasons. The question came up, would J.J. Watt get in the Hall of Fame if he never plays again? Let's hope he comes back.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we won't have to worry about it. Okay. I want you to tell this story because I think this is really important, okay? And I set it up with the utmost respect because the mentality that led you to do what you did your senior year of college is what made you a guy who played 9 years in the National Football League and many other things in your life as well. But so you were a senior going into your senior year of college?
Yes.
You're the captain of the Notre Dame football team, and you were projected to be maybe a second-round pick.
Yeah, I was an outside backer. I weighed about 265. I mean, I was in best shape of my life by far, and I was projected like a second-round pick going into that season.
And then what happened?
I was an honorable mention All-American the year before. First game was against Purdue. And in the first half of that game, I took on a pulling guard, and he caught me underneath. It came underneath the shoulder pad, got me underneath the shoulder pad, and it certainly hurt an awful lot to where my arm really kind of went dead. And it was right before halftime, and the medical staff, I stayed out there, but then they looked at me on the sideline, and then it was halftime, and I couldn't raise my arm. And, the doctors were looking at me, and I said, I want to go back in and play, And they said, listen, you can't raise your arm. We can't put you back in the game. And I said, I'm going to work on it and work it around. And they said, you're not going in until you can lift your arm over your head. So, okay. So I when the doctors were tending to somebody else, I grabbed my wrist with my other hand, and I picked my arm up and I put it up against the wall so my arm was above my head resting against the wall. And I yelled over to the doctor, "Hey, doc, look, I got my arm over my head." He just looked at me. He just kind of laughed and said, "Okay," and just kind of said, "Go ahead." So I went back in the second half, and the ref ended up taking me out of the game. He said, "You're playing with one arm. You can't do this anymore. Go, you're done." So I never played I should have at that point. That was the first game of the season.
This is the really important part now.
Should have been done.
Should have what been done?
I should have stopped playing.
Correct. You should have redshirted that season.
I should have. That was my last year. I was a captain. I just his first game. But I didn't. And I never played more than a half in any game the rest of the season because of the shoulder. And then after the season, I had surgery on the shoulder. So when I went to the combine, which then was at Arizona State, it wasn't what you see in Indianapolis, I wasn't able to do anything. Nothing. No running, no lifting, no nothing. All I could do is take my shirt off, and stand there like cattle, like everybody else, and have everybody look at me, and then have the doctors prod and pull my shoulder every which way but loose to see how it was. And, I ended up going in the 10th round. Now, again, it's not to say I would have gone in the second round, but I certainly didn't give myself the best chance in the world. So hindsight, which is always 20/20, would have been sit, you're hurt, don't play anymore and come back the next year and do it all over again. But it kind of, in all honesty, never even entered my mind. Never even broached the subject or entered my mind to not play anymore that season. And it
cost you money that you never got back. Now, your life has turned out great. Your career turned out well. It ultimately led you here, and this
you do have the
turned out great.
But you do have the 10th round mentality held on you all the time.
If you were a second round pick, things would have been massively different in your football
Certainly
career.
Money-wise, without question, yeah.
And so as we were having this conversation, Booger McFarland is listening, and he texted me. He said, this is one of the reasons NFL players are in the position they're in. We have it ingrained in our head, you don't miss games.
Yeah, there would have to be somebody outside of the playing that you trust so much that would, because in a vacuum, I understand what you're saying. Guys, Aaron Donald, Zach Martin, Odell Beckham, you guys are going to be in the $50 to $60 million of guaranteed money range. Don't step on that field until they pay you. I get it in a vacuum, but you can't tell that to a football player.
Well, let me give you one example of where it may be changing a little. Let me give you a couple of names.
Okay.
Christian McCaffrey.
Right. Yeah.
Leonard Fournette.
Mm-hmm.
The tight end from Michigan, Jake Butt.
Jake Butt, yeah.
All played in their or McCaffrey and Fournette do not play in their bowl games. They both wound up going in the top 10 of the draft. Mm-hmm. They both got contracts in excess of $15 million guaranteed. Jalen Smith, who would have been a top 5 pick,
without question,
plays in a bowl game. He'll never make that money back.
No, we estimated he lost about $19-20 million.
Jake Butt, tight end Michigan, would have been a first-round pick. Falls, who knows what money. Now, look, if those guys wind up having great careers and being great players, then they will eventually make a whole bunch of money. But the point is, maybe that mentality does change, and maybe it should. I mean, as much as it sounds sacrilegious for me to sit here and say the football player mentality needs to change a little bit, maybe it should.
There is a monster difference in sitting out a bowl game and sitting out a regular season in the NFL when you have teammates in that locker room with you. And again, when you're holding out for money, everybody is normally, hey, that's your money, that's your business, do your thing. But players have the player can justify, listen, this bowl game it could be fun, but it doesn't mean a whole lot. I'm going to get ready. But the regular season does. You're getting ready for a regular season where everybody's 0-0. Everybody is looking forward to something, and you can't fathom saying, you know what, I'm going to choose to sit. Again, guys have. And guys have gotten paid, guys haven't, guys have not gotten paid. Guys have taken it up to that point where they needed to get in to have the year count for them. But it's just tough, the mentality to say, I am willingly going to sit out the beginning of a season of games that count. That is a tough one to overcome.
I understand that. But I also know that this bowl game thing wouldn't have happened 10 years ago.
I agree with that.
So it's changing.
Yep.
And this could be the next step. And that's why earlier this morning I said to you, the Odell Beckham Jr. situation could wind up being a total shift in mentality in the NFL. Because if that guy, and I hope this doesn't, I don't even want to say it out loud, but if that guy never gets his $50 or $60 million, it could change a lot of people's thinking. We'll see. Really good stuff. All right, huge hour still on the way. Some legal questions, Trey Wingo, Darren Woodson, and a whole lot more. All in the next hour. Stay with us. Mike and Mike.